Hello, I am Mrs. Khushbu Pathak, Assistant Professor, Department of Management from SSMV Bhilai. Today, I am going to discuss the introductory part of the Managerial Economics. Basically, this subject comes under the BBA for third semester and also useful for MBA and MCOM also. So let us see what are the main contents of the topic, that is Managerial Economics. Introduction, meaning, definitions, difference traditional economics and managerial economics, then nature, and at the end concluding remarks. Let's start our presentation. Let us introduce this topic, that is Managerial Economics. Managerial economics used synonymously with business economics. It is a branch of economics that deals with the application of microeconomic analysis to decision-making techniques of businesses and management units. It acts as the media between economic theory and pragmatic economics. Managerial economics bridges the gap between theory and practice. Let us now to understand what is managerial economics and why this topic or this subject is introduced. Managerial economics जो subject है, basically it is derived from business economics, we can say. But in business economics, we are dealing with the scarcity of resources, unlimited needs and wants in economics. So how to match between the unlimited needs and wants by having limited resources. So in business economics, most of the time we study the needs, wants. These are the human parts we study in economics. But here we are talking about managerial economics. So managerial economics, basically it is a part of business economics that deals with basically business decision making, planning. So these are the aspect. But managerial economics also bridges the gap between theory and practice. Basically जब हम मैनेजरियल इकोनॉमिक्स की बात करते हैं, इसमें हम जितने ट्रेडिशनल टूल्स एंड टेक्निक्स होते हैं, इकोनॉमिक एनालिसिस जो होती है बिज़नेस इकोनॉमिक्स की, ये सारी टूल्स एंड टेक्निक्स को अपने बिज़नेस के लिए, अपने ऑर्गेनाइजेशन के लिए, डिसीजन मेकिंग एंड प्लानिंग एंड कंट्रोलिंग, इसके लिए हम इसको यूज़ करते हैं बेसिकली. बट मैनेजरियल इकोनॉमिक्स इज़ बेसिकली यूज्ड बाय द मैनेजर्स, राइट. सो हम क्या करते हैं, वी आर अप्लाइंग द टूल्स एंड टेक्निक्स ऑफ ट्रेडिशनल इकोनॉमिक्स एंड using these tools and techniques for proper business decision making. So here we are also using certain economic theories also, tools, techniques. So these are the concepts which we are using for managerial economics. Then let us understand the concept of managerial economics. In this diagram there are three boxes and one circle is there. So first, economic theory and concepts. So what can be the economic theories and concepts? Demand, supply, cost, competition and market. So this is the economic theory and concepts. And another is managerial decision issues. Then the third diagram shows quantitative approach, mathematical economics, econometrics. Then these three boxes is covered or combined under one circle, that is what? Managerial economics. Here we are going to discuss using both economic theory, concepts and quantitative approach to make managerial decision making. In managerial economics, the sum up of this concept or sum up of this diagram is that in managerial economics we are using economic theories, concepts, quantitative approaches to basically to take proper managerial decision making. Ultimately, the role of the managerial economics or role of the manager is that to take appropriate decision making. So that should be the right decision for the organization. So for taking the right decision, we are using economic theories and concepts like demand, supply, cost, competition and market. We need to understand first what are the economic theories and concepts, then only we can apply these economic theories, concepts, tools and techniques. And at the same time, we are also using some quantitative approaches, like it can be mathematics related, economics related and econometrics related. So these are the mathematical tools and techniques we are also using again for proper decision making. Ultimately, the concept of managerial economics is that we have to use economic theories and concepts and quantitative approaches, tools and techniques for proper managerial decision making. So this is what concept of managerial economics. So let us understand what is the meaning of managerial economics. It is the application of economic theory to managerial practice. Then it is the application of economic theory and methodology with business administration practice. It is the integration of economic theory with business practice to facilitate decision making and forward planning by management. Ultimately, as we discussed in the previous diagram, is that we are using economic tools and techniques, concepts and methodologies for business practices, managerial practices, and also we are integrating the economic theories with business practice to ultimately use for proper decision making and forward planning by management. Ultimately, why we are doing this, why we are applying economic tools and techniques for business practices, for managerial practices, and at the same time decision making and forward planning. Then let us actually understand the the meaning of the word managerial economics. So the word managerial economics is made up of two words, that is managerial and economics. So let us separately understand what is the meaning of managerial. Managerial means all the activities related to managers, means everything that is related to management, that is related to managers, which comes under the managerial. So what are the activities which are related to managers? It involves managers' roles, responsibilities, tasks, duties, authorities and functions of a manager. So everything that revolves around the managers is called managerial. Then let us understand the meaning of economics. So what is economics? This is the very common term, and most of the time we are confused about the meaning of economics. So let us clear the meaning of economics. Economics is a social science which studies human behavior or in relation to optimization and allocation of available resources to achieve the given ends. Ultimately, what we are trying to do in economics is that we are studying the human behavior, basically the unlimited needs, wants, dreams and desires of the human being in relation to optimizing or allocation of available resources, means whatever the resources we are having, So we have to use our resources in a best possible manner so that we can satisfy our needs and wants. That is unlimited in nature. So we are having the unlimited needs and wants, but at the same time we have to utilize or allocate the available resources. Whatever the resources we are having, we have to use in an optimum manner so that we can achieve our goals and objectives. So economics always talks about the needs and wants. So needs and wants are always unlimited. When one need is satisfied, another need arises. So this is the economics, but ultimately we have to deal with unlimited needs and wants, and proper utilization and allocation should be there for the available resources to ultimately achieving our goals and objectives. So let us understand the total word, that is managerial economics. Previously we have discussed the separate meaning of managerial then economics. Now we have to understand what is the actual meaning of managerial economics. Managerial economics is the study of how scarce resources are directed most efficiently to achieve managerial goals. It is a valuable tool for analyzing business situations to take better decisions. So now we are clear with the meaning of managerial economics. It is ultimately talks about the study of scarce resources, the limited resources we are having, and ultimately we have to achieve the organizational goals and objectives. And it is a very useful tool for analyzing the business situations, using in business practices, and ultimately we have to take proper decisions in the organization. So managerial economics is very useful for decision making and planning also. So let us now understand, or let's see the definitions of managerial economics. Different authors have given the different definitions, but here we are taking the three definitions one by one. First, by Douglas, managerial economics is the application of economic principles and methodologies to the decision making process within the firm or organization. Then the next definition, Papas and Hershey talks about, in his words, managerial economics applies economic theory and methods to business and administrative decision making. Then the third definition, Salvator defines managerial economics refers to the application of an economic theory and tools of analysis of decision science to examine how an organization can achieve its objectives most effectively. In this three definition, again it talks about managerial economics is basically the application of economic tools and techniques and methodologies for proper decision making, for business practices, and ultimately for achieving the goal of the organization. Next, we have to understand what is the difference between the traditional economics and managerial economics. So, the first point is traditional economics is micro and macro aspect. It covers both the aspect. Means economics is having two parts. One is micro, that is a very narrow in nature, very narrow in scope, and in macro aspect it is a very broad aspect. It covers the whole market. So in traditional economics it covers both microeconomics and macroeconomics. But in managerial economics, it is totally based on the micro aspect. Means it is basically the study of firms or the industry level. So micro aspect is limited to the firm level or the industry level. And then next difference is that positive and normative science. Basically, in positive science, we are oriented towards achieving goals and we are following some sort of rules and regulations, standards and guidelines. Again, at the same time, in managerial economics also, it is normative science. So again, we are following certain rules, regulation, norms or standards. So this is what normative economics. Then traditional economics is basically a theoretical aspect. We have studied in a theoretical manner, but managerial economics covers the practical aspect of the subject. Why we are saying this? That this is practical aspect because we are applying traditional concepts and theories and practices of economics for proper decision making, for business practices and for successful planning and for goal achievement. So this is the practical approach we are using in managerial economics. Then the next difference is that economic aspect of the problem. So the traditional economics only study about the economic aspect of the problem, not the other aspects are covered, but in managerial economics it covers economic and as well as non-economic aspect of the problem. Means this is concerned with the monetary aspect as well as non-monetary aspect of the problem. Then traditional economics is based on the certain assumptions. So, but when we talk about the managerial economics, it does not follow any kind of assumptions. So there is no assumptions in managerial economics. Last, traditional economics, it is having a narrow scope because it only covers the economic aspect of the problem or deals with the unlimited needs and wants. So it is having a narrow scope. But at the same time, managerial economics is having a wide concept because it studies economic and non-economic aspect of the problem. It studies the firm level problem, industry level problem, and at the same time it is studied under the micro aspect, but it also studies different types of macroeconomic factors. So this is having a wider scope. So let us move on the next topic, that is nature of managerial economics. So let us one by one understand what are the nature of managerial economics. Here in this diagram, art and science, microeconomics uses macroeconomics, multidisciplinary, prescriptive, normative, discipline, management oriented and pragmatic. So let us understand one by one the nature of managerial economics. The first is microeconomics oriented. Basically, science of economics involves both macroeconomics and microeconomics, but managerial economics deals with individual economic behavior close to analysis of decision making aspect of unit of management at the firm level, means at the micro level. Basically, science of economics involves both the economics macro level and micro level, but when we talk about the managerial economics, it is basically oriented towards the firm level, means it studies only micro level. So microeconomics oriented nature of managerial economics. Then let us move on the next point, that is normative approach. In this previously we have discussed what is normative. Normative is something that is we are working towards rules, regulations, certain sort of norms, standards. So when we are following norms and standards, so this can be the normative approach. Here we are concerned with the situation as it ought to be, not only to describe but also to prescribe, to prescribing something, to suggesting something. So we don't have to only describe something, we have to prescribe, we have to identify, we have to tell the rules and regulations, the standards and norms. It deals with practical situations, problems by implementing corrective measures. So ultimately, it deals with the practical situations and problems, and ultimately, we are implementing the corrective measures. So the next point is only a part of science of economics. Study of economics covers wide areas like international business, money, public finance. There are so many topics which are covered under the science of economics. But managerial economics deals with the decision making of the managerial cadre at the level of the firm. So previously again we have discussed this, because managerial economics involves only at the firm level and deals with the decision making at the organizational level or the firm level. Then next, knowledge of macroeconomics is essential. Since firms do not work under isolation, managers have to consider all the macro environmental factors, that is, government interventions, tariffs, taxes, monetary and fiscal policies. So, now let us understand what are the macroeconomics factors, environmental factors. These are the broad factors which affect directly, indirectly the operations, business operations of the organization. So this can be the natural factor, legal factor, political factor, economic factors, social and cultural factors. So these are the factors which are having a major implications in the working pattern and the practices of the organization. So when we are talking about the managerial economics, when we are dealing with the decision making, planning, controlling aspect, at the same time we have to understand all types of managerial, all types of macro environmental factors, so that it will be very easy to take the right decision, to we can have the right planning, we can follow the right approaches to fulfill the goals of the organization. Then managerial economics is a science. Managerial economics is also a science of making decisions with regard to scarce resources with alternative applications. It is a body of knowledge that determines or observes the internal and external environment for decision making. Basically, in science we are dealing with this systematic pattern of doing something, and here in managerial economics we have to deal with the limited resource, and at the same time we have to apply these tools and techniques for taking right decision, right planning, and ultimately goal achievement in the organization. So science is one of the part of or the nature of managerial economics. Then art. Managerial economist is required to have an art of utilizing his capability, knowledge and understanding to achieve the organizational goals. Managerial economist should have an art to put in practice his theoretical knowledge regarding elements of economic environment. So, managerial economics is also an art. Why this is art? Because a managerial economist must have the art of utilizing his capability for knowledge, understanding the organizational goals and objectives. So firstly, he must have the certain qualities, art, so knowing, understanding, then only he will understand and achieve the goals of the organization. So it is a art also. Then dynamic in nature. Managerial economics deals with the human beings, human resources. They can be the consumers, producers, suppliers, financiers, governments, etc. The nature and attitude differs from person to person. Thus, to cope up with the dynamism and vitality, managerial economics also changes itself over a period of time. So ultimately, the work of managerial economics is that as the time changes, as the situation of business or the market changes, we have to adapt according to the situation and according to the market conditions. So dynamism is something we have to understand the market conditions and we have to change according to the changes taking place in the market. Then next, it is multidisciplinary in nature. It uses many tools and principles belonging to various disciplines such as accounting, finance, statistics, operation research, human resources, production. So these are the areas, these are the disciplines which we are using, analyzing tools and techniques in managerial economics. Ultimately, we have to take the right decisions, proper planning and goal achievement. So managerial economics is multidisciplinary also. Then next, pragmatic. Pragmatic is nothing but it's a practical approach. It is concerned with the practical problems and result and outcome oriented. It considers particular environment of decision making, not in general. Basically, what we are trying to say is that in pragmatic, it is concerned with the practical problems. So we are having the some sort of practical problems and we have to solve those problems and achieve the outcome based result. Ultimately, we have to reach at the result or the outcome. So we have to solve the practical problem and we have to achieve the result. So this is the pragmatic. Then the next one is management oriented. It acts as a tool in the hands of managers to deal with business related problems and uncertainties appropriately. Ultimately, the major role, the key role in managerial economics is that a manager is playing a key role for decision making, planning, controlling, or different functions performed by the managers. Ultimately, a manager deals with the different situation, different problems, uncertainties, ups and downs in business, but ultimately he have to take the proper decision and proper planning and at the end goal achievement. So let us conclude. My presentation is that managerial economics, which applies economic theories and methods to business and administrative decision making and managerial problems, is a vital tool for economic forecasting, for effective economic forecasting and profit optimization. Ultimately, managerial economics is using or applying certain economic theories, tools, techniques, methodologies for ultimately for taking right business and administrative decision making, proper planning, proper decision making and goal achievement, objectives fulfillment, and ultimately trying to solve the different types of business related and managerial problems in the organization. It is also useful for effective economic forecasting. So previously we have discussed why this is used, because of understanding the macro environmental factors. This is using the forecasting, the analysis of the whole market. So whatever the changes which are taking place in the market, so we need to understand the changes, we need to forecast, we need to analyze, and at the same time we have to take right decision, right planning and the goal achievement. So ultimately it leads to the profit maximization. So thank you for this presentation.